Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to call to order this meeting of the Arlington ISD Board of Trustees on February the 4th, 2021 at 5:07 p.m. Due to health and safety concerns related to COVID-19 coronavirus, this meeting will be conducted by video conference or telephone call. At least a quorum of the board will be participating either in person, by video conference, or telephone conference in accordance with the provisions of Section 551.125 or 551.127 of the Texas Government Code that have been suspended by order of the governor. So I don't know if you can tell, but we are not at the PDC. We are all virtual. So pursuant to state guidelines and regulations, all persons will be required to comply with state and district guidelines and regulations. Members of the public may access this meeting via AISD website at www.aisd.net. The Board of Trustees on February the 4th, 2021, beginning at 5:08 p.m., will convene in closed session pursuant to sections 551.071 through 551.084 of the Texas Government Code in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act for the topics set forth on our agenda. We will reconvene in open meeting at approximately 6:30 p.m. Thank you. At this time, I will reconvene into open session this meeting of the Arlington Independent School District Board of Trustees for February the 4th, 2021, beginning at 6:34 p.m. We will start our meeting with the open ceremony. Please join Mr. Bowie Hogg in leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, President Mays. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Hogg. If everyone would please make sure that their cell phones are silenced and electronic devices are silenced to avoid any disruptions, especially if you are not muted. And now, if you would all please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Okay, the first item on our agenda this evening is our presentation, and that is the presentation of our February Student of the Month, who comes from Lamar High School. I will now turn it over to our wonderful principal, Mr. Andy Hagman of Lamar High School.
President Mays, members of the board, Dr. Cavazos, I'd like to introduce the High School Student of the Month for February, Jennifer Rodriguez Sandoval. Lamar's motto is Viking Fight Never.
Andy, you're on mute.
There we go.
Okay.
Lamar's motto is Viking Fight Never Dies, and Jennifer embodies that spirit beautifully. She's a 4-year avid student, and she has parlayed that learning into being accepted to every college she's applied to. Texas A&M, Stephen F. Austin, Texas Women's University, Texas A&M in San Antonio, and others. She received $100,000 from Texas Women's University and also a full tuition paid scholarship from Texas A&M San Antonio. Jennifer is determined to succeed, always challenging herself with advanced coursework. As of the end of the fall semester, Jennifer has earned 30.5 credits, which equates to 61 classes, and in the vast majority of those, she earned a high A. This year, in addition to 2 AP courses, Jennifer's taking our on-ramps dual credit course in college algebra. Beyond academics, Jennifer has performed in our color guard all 4 years, which requires a lot more practice time than you may think. She's been active in our LULAC chapter, and she works 2 jobs, at McDonald's and Studio Movie Grill. Jennifer hustles, and she exceeds expectations regularly. We're very proud of her, and we're thrilled that she is the AISD High School Student of the Month for February.
Jennifer, would you like to say a few words?
I just want to say thank you, especially to like my AVID teachers. They're the reason that I even was able to figure out the college application process. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. And thanks to Mr. Hagman for dropping off my award today. I don't know.
Well, congratulations, Jennifer. I think actions in this case speak louder than any words that you could say. Congratulations to you on being elected Student of the Month or nominated by your principal. And if AVID was teaching you about how to do the applications, it sounds like you more than got it down.
Yeah.
We are so proud of you and good luck in the future. We want to hear about your continued success. And once again, congratulations and thank you for being such a wonderful student role model. And good luck picking your college of choice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think I
Thank
already
you, Mr. Hagman.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda, we will consider our administrative appointments for principal for Berry Elementary and principal for Thornton, Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Mays. And this evening, I'd like to recommend that the board ratify the appointment of the individuals discussed in closed session for principal for Berry Elementary and principal for Thornton Elementary, as this is part of our consolidation work and the rebuild of schools in East Arlington. And so we bring forward those principals today.
Very good. So do we have a motion to approve the ratification of the administrative appointment as discussed in executive session?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Have a motion by Dr. Reich, a second by Ms. Walton. Since this meeting is being conducted virtually, our vote will be a roll call vote. So please state your name and your vote, either yes, if you are in favor of the motion, or no, if you're not in favor of the motion. And this is how we will conduct the rest of any voting items for the rest of the meeting. Ms. Fowler?
Melody Fowler, I vote yes.
Ms. Walton?
Polly Walton, I vote yes.
Mr. Hogg?
Bowie Hogg, I vote yes.
Mr. Wilbanks?
David Wilbanks, I vote yes.
Mr. Chapa?
Justin Chapa, I vote yes.
Dr. Reich?
Aaron Reich, I vote yes.
Keisha Mays, I vote yes. Motion passes in the affirmative. Thank you very much. We've got public hearing. There are none.
So Ms. Mays, I'll introduce those two principals, or at least
please
their names. So
thank you, Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you. So with that, I'd like to introduce or better yet announce virtually Rose Raven, the principal of Berry Elementary. She attended Northwood University at Cedar Hill for Bachelor of Arts, University of North Texas for Master of Education in Administration. Most recently was the principal at Knox Elementary, has been an assistant principal at Knox, and has been a first grade teacher at Knox. So congratulations to Rose Raven. The principal for Thornton, and again, these are consolidated schools. We know that the Thornton exists, but there'll be new Thornton and new Berry, if you will. And so principal there is Alicia Rodriguez that we're ratifying tonight. She attended the University of Texas at Arlington, Bachelor of Arts in English, UT Arlington for Master of Education in Curriculum and Instruction. Most recently, the principal at Thornton Elementary, has been an assistant principal at Thornton, Language Placement Center Specialist with the bilingual ESL department, has taught 5th grade bilingual at Thornton, and special education teacher assistant at Thornton as well. So congratulations to Rose Raven and Alicia Rodriguez.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cavazos. And yes, congratulations. Before we move to the open forum for agenda items, Dr. Cavazos, would you like to just briefly state why our background looks a little different this evening from our other meetings?
That's correct. So we had, and we posted this online, we had internet issues the city did, or AT&T did, and it affected our PDC. And we knew that earlier today. And so we made the move to all virtual meeting. And we posted that as well to let everyone know, but it was beyond our control with AT&T issues with internet that affected our PDC and 2 of our schools. So that's why we're all virtual tonight.
Well, thank you, Dr. Cavazos, and thanks to the AISD staff for very quickly being able to make sure that we could continue our business and hold our meeting open and make sure that the public can still view us. So thank you very much to the district for that. So now we move to our open forum for agenda items. As stated on the posted agenda, members of the public who desire to address the board regarding an item on this agenda are required to register by sending an email to the Superintendent of School Secretary, lbenjami@aisd.net, no later than 3 p.m. the day of the board meeting. Mrs. Benjamin, do we have any requesters registered to address the board regarding agenda items?
Yes, ma'am. We have requester Jason Fulks to speak before the board.
Okay, so Mr. Fulks, this is a routine part of the school board's agenda for regularly scheduled meetings. This segment of the meeting provides citizens with an opportunity to share their views with the trustees on items that are on the agenda tonight. It is not intended to be a discussion or debate, and trustees will not reply to the speakers. Derogatory comments aimed at an individual will not be tolerated. Personnel matters are not appropriate subjects for open forum, and you will have 5 minutes to speak. Mrs. Benjamin will notify you when your time is up and to end your presentation. So, Mr. Fulks.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. I'm thankful to be the first person to get to speak, and I know my wife will be because she's waiting for me to get home for dinner. So I appreciate you guys. I am a long-term Arlington resident, and I'm not sure of the agenda tonight or what all would be discussed, but I did want to just inquire or make known my concerns about the Arlington Independent School District and what we're doing to protect our students, our teachers, and our faculty. I have a young child at home, and this really hits home for us. And as well, I'm also a business owner in Arlington, and our company has been out there providing these type items for schools all over the state and country. We were the company that provided all the stuff for Garland Independent School District, who were really out there on the forefront. They had a lot of publicity for that. We've done Austin, San Francisco. I'm not saying this for personal benefit other than to say, I don't see us moving in the same way within the Arlington Independent School District as the other districts that we're working on. We're here local. We want to help. And I know there's a lot of other people like us. I know there's some debate and can be on whether these type products work or not, but what there's no debate about is that our teachers, our parents, and our students have concern about coming back into the schools. And these type products give them confidence. I'm just curious, knowing that there's additional monies coming out in the near future, similar to the CARE Act type of money, if Arlington, I'm sure there's a plan, but if that's something you guys could share with us, so we just know kind of where we're moving as a community to get our students back in school. And the last thing I wanted to say is, I come from, I have a disabled background, and I also come from a very underprivileged background as well. And I have a heart for those things. And although I can't help the whole school district, I do want to offer, if there's classes out there where there's really problems, I'm building these things for communities all in districts all over the country. I would be willing to donate these products to underprivileged classes or classes where there were disabled students at no charge. So I just want to throw that out there. If you guys need help, I will help with no expectation of any benefit on my own. Even if that's just offering some designs and protocols of what the other school districts are doing, just to give you an idea, you know, of what is working in other places. I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate your hearing me out.
Thank you, Mr. Fulks.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Benjamin, just to confirm, are there any other requesters?
No, ma'am, there are no other requesters.
Thank you, Ms. Benjamin. So next on our agenda are action items. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Mays. And the first action item is to consider the issuance and the sale of our bond. And so we recommend that that sale occur.
Okay, do I have a motion? Yes, Dr. Reich. And you're muted.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Thought I had taken myself off the mute. So yes, in regard to this item, I move to adopt an order authorizing the issuance and the sale of the Arlington ISD Unlimited Tax School Building Bonds Series 2021 and approving all matters incident thereto.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so I've got a motion by Dr. Reich, second by Ms. Fowler. Any discussion?
Ms.
Seeing
Mays,
none,
hey,
yes,
Ms.
Mr.
Mays, I
Hahn.
think it's just important to say, and I commend our staff and our finance team for the work on this, you know, coming in and especially on timing to be very careful with the taxpayer dollar and make sure we're utilizing on the lowest interest rate possible. And I have to thank our longtime finance team and Darla Moss and our new CFO and team picking up and moving exactly and getting some amazing rates. You know, no one likes to pay interest, but the least we can pay, the better. And so I truly appreciate all the team for doing that. That's it, Ms. Mays. Just wanted to make that one little personal statement.
Appreciate that. Okay, so at this time, we will take our roll call vote. Ms. Walton?
Polly Walton, I vote yes.
Mr. Hogg?
Bowie Hogg, I vote yes.
Mr. Wilbanks?
David Wilbanks, I vote yes.
Mr. Chapa?
Justin Chapa, I vote yes.
Dr. Reich?
Aaron Reich, I vote yes.
Mrs. Fowler?
Melody Fowler, I vote yes.
Keisha Mays, I vote yes. Action item passes in the unanimous. Okay, we have another action item. Consider appointments of individuals to the Citizen Bond Oversight Committee. Dr. Cavazos?
Thank you, President Mays. And this evening, bring for the board consideration the members for the CBOC, or Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. The Community Engagement Committee, led by Melody Fowler, has reviewed this, so I'll turn it over to Ms. Fowler.
Thank you, Dr. Cavazos. Before I read the motion, I want to thank my fellow board members, Bowie Hogg and David Wilbanks, who are also on my committee. Thank you for your time and deliberations. I also want to thank all the citizens and the teachers who submitted applications. We had so many new voices that wanted to be heard. And so it made it nice to be able to have some additional new people that wanted to serve. So we appreciate that so much. All right, so the Board Community Engagement Committee reviewed the applications for the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee and brought forward the following for consideration. Charles Finicum, Kimberlyn Proctor, Terry Belcher, Kimberly Lloyd, Sherry Maxwell, Kelly Hopes, Jonathan Horton, Aaron Steele, Deborah Stanton, Jose Ramos, Poppy Moore, and we're so thrilled that we were able to make contact with Darla Pesnell, who's also wanting to serve as an alternate on this committee. She's been on a lot of different committees, and I think her insight will be valuable to this committee. So we're so grateful that she's able to join us. Also want to thank the AISD staff members who also serve on this board, as well as our SLAB students, Student Leadership Advisory Board. They're also part of this committee. So I move to appoint the recommended individuals to the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, and that the board authorize the Board Community Engagement Committee to appoint the committee chairperson, appoint additional alternates as identified, determine the length of term for each committee member, 1 or 2 year terms aligned with the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee charge. So I bring that motion before the board.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, a motion by Mrs. Fowler, a second by Dr. Reich. Any discussion?
I just have a comment to echo a little bit with what Ms. Fowler said. Thank you to everybody that volunteered to do this, and for those that are on this committee. This is extremely important for us as a board, as a governing body. You are going through what is the largest bond in our history, a lot of dollars. And we have so many projects that are tied to this, and it is so important the work that this committee will do, each of the members, to ensure that everything is being done appropriately, on task, on time, on budget. This is something that we put in place as a board many years ago with a 2009 bond implementation to ensure the community's trust and transparency. And so I thank you all, because there's so much information that you're going to be going through and pouring through just thank you very much for making that what will be a very big time commitment to make sure that everything is done the way the voters were hoping it would be done.
Thank you, Dr. Reich. Okay, we will begin our roll call. Once again, motion by Mrs. Fowler and second by Dr. Reich. Ms. Walton?
Polly Walton, I vote yes.
Mr. Hogg?
Bowie Hogg, I vote yes.
Mr. Wilbanks?
David Wilbanks, I vote yes.
Mr. Chapa?
Justin Chapa, I vote yes.
Dr. Reich?
Aaron Reich, I vote yes.
Mrs. Fowler?
Melody Fowler, I vote yes.
Keisha Mays, I vote yes. Motion passes in the affirmative. Once again, well said, Dr. Reich. Well said, Mrs. Fowler. Thank you, Mrs. Fowler, for chairing this committee. Thank you, Mr. Hogg and Wilbanks, for serving. Appreciate what you've done for putting together this committee that once again is so very important. Okay, next on our agenda are discussion action items. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Mays. And this evening we bring, as is customary with every board meeting, an update on where we are with our implementation of protocols and where we're dealing with the pandemic and things like that. And so for your consideration, just an update. I'll turn it over to Dr. Brown, who will lead us through that update tonight.
Good evening, President Mays and members of the board and Dr. Cavazos. Make sure my video is going. Okay, there we go. Thank you for this opportunity to provide a brief return to school update for you all this evening. So today we're going to talk about three things today. One, we're going to provide an update just on some resources that are available to our families and students. We will, of course, update our AISD and Tarrant County most recent COVID-19 data, and then, of course, provide an update on our AISD rapid testing. So, of course, we always begin with our AISD guiding principles, starting off with flexibility and grace, of course, offering that and asking for that in return. Educational equity, making sure that all of our students have access to a rigorous learning environment, no matter if they're at home learning or they're, of course, in our schools. Prioritizing stakeholder input, receiving input from our stakeholders on decisions that we're making, and of course, prioritizing the health and safety of all of our staff members and our students in AISD. So today I'll talk to you about just a couple of available resources that we just want to continue to message to our families and our community. Dr. Cavazos sent an update last week that did have some of this information. So we're just reminding our community this evening. So we will be starting our family support huddles, which is going to be a great opportunity for parents to engage with members of our departments in our district on different topics such as social emotional learning, counseling, advanced academics, special education. So basically the most talked about topics our PACE department led by Aaron Perales work with different departments to really just be able to come up with workshops that we can provide for our parents. These workshops are about an hour long. So we'll present content for 30 minutes and the final 30 minutes is just an open Q&A. So our parents have the opportunity and a space to be able to ask any questions about that specific topic. Now, we did start those workshops this week, and they're held in the mornings and evenings, just depending on what's convenient for our parents. And then we have those again next week. And so we're excited about the family support huddles because sometimes just bringing our departments and our teams together before parents really answers many of the questions they might have had and didn't know where to go to for information. Just a couple of ideas or examples of those classes. If you have concerns about Seesaw, so some tips for Seesaw for our parents, creating success for at-home learning, like how to create the perfect opportunity for your students to learn even at home, and then just, special education services, 504 dyslexia, those types of workshops are being held in our family support huddles. We also want to continue to remind our parents and our community that we do have our hotline still available. So we have a counseling hotline, and that is Monday through Friday from 12 to 4. Members of our counseling team, they answer phones, they talk to parents and students who have questions or concerns, who may need resources, or may just need some guidance. We also want to remind our parents that our school counselors are also available. So you're able to make an appointment with the school counselor for your student if there's something specific that you need from a support with, I should say. The second one is our community services hotline. And this is managed by our social workers and other support personnel. And this is if any of our parents or families have questions about getting resources for food or clothing or transportation, any kind of advocacy support. Our social workers have ideas and lots of resources to be able to share with our parents. And that also is Monday through Friday from noon to 4. So we just wanted to continue to remind our parents and community that those resources are still available through our hotline. As it relates to academic support, just wanted to provide a couple of brief updates for you today. As you're aware, we continue to try to find ways to support our students who might be struggling, especially with their grades. So if we do have students who fail to make a 70 in any of their courses during that first semester, the deadline has been extended for them to recover that credit or recover a grade. As long as they're able to show mastery, of course, of the content. That opportunity is extended until next Friday, February 12th. And we know there have been some questions and thoughts about our summer programming. So we just wanted to provide a brief overview of some of the considerations that are being thought of by the academic services team. They are still in the middle of planning for our summer programming, but just to know that we do have an overarching ideas that we're focusing on as we build out the summer plans for our students. So our summer programming will have an additional 6 weeks of programming this summer. We know that we have lots of opportunities for students who may have some gaps in learning just through the challenges that we've had this year. And so we're going to extend the learning opportunities for those students, and that will be in person or virtual. So there will not be a hybrid opportunity for students, but parents can select one or the other mode of instruction for their students during summer programming. For our kindergarten through 8th grade students, our program is going to be focused on literacy and mathematics. So the 2 core areas will be our focus. And we also want to make sure during this planning process that our academic services team, they're focused on creating opportunities for extracurricular activities, just to keep our kids engaged, not only on the academic part, but just to increase their engagement through those extracurricular activities and ideas. As it relates to high school, we'll just continue with our original credit and recovery opportunities that we do every year. And we are also expanding eligibility. This is something that the team has been planning. So we know that we have more students who would qualify because they do have some learning gaps. We want to make sure that we're able to reach those students, provide these opportunities for additional learning and support during the additional 6 weeks of programming. And through our summer programming, of course, we're going to offer transportation to our students and make sure that all of our students have access to meals as well. One final reminder about Explore Arlington ISD. Tomorrow is the deadline for parents to apply for any of our specialized programs. So if you're interested in applying for Jones Academy or any of our other specialized programs, that information is available on our district website, and that deadline is tomorrow, February 5th. So now I'll spend some time just talking about our health update, sharing some recent data with you all. And of course, we know by heart all of these metrics that we have on the screen. So I'll just go ahead and dig right into the current data for Tarrant County. Our 7-day moving average positivity rate is about 17%, and that's as of January 31st. The virus spread, which is what I used to show as the case count, it's reported differently now on our Tarrant County dashboard. 11,733 cases, 8% 7-day moving average for COVID-like illnesses, and then 20% of the total beds are now occupied by COVID patients. We also want to say, you know, there are some some things to celebrate, if you will. We do have some decreases across all of these areas. And so with that, we're going to continue being very strategic with our mitigation strategies to make sure we do our very best to contain the spread of COVID-19. As relates to our COVID-19 AISD data, if you recall, we do update this every Tuesday by noon. So this is what was updated last Tuesday. We currently have about 538 staff members in quarantine and over 2,800 students who are quarantined right now. Just continue to highlight the work of our health services team, Annette Minnerly, our nurses, all of our campus staff who are really supporting this effort to ensure that we are diligent about contact tracing to do our best to try to mitigate the spread. As it relates to self-reports, we do share this with you during every board meeting. In January, we had the most self-reports, and that again is anyone who's been exposed to COVID-19, who tests positive for COVID-19, or any staff member who has symptoms that could signal a COVID-like illness. So we had over 1,500 self-reports in January. And so far in February, just a few days into the month, we've had a little over 130 self-reports so far. As you know, we have our rapid testing center that has been continuing to test students and staff members. So far, we've had over 1,300 rapid tests that have been administered by the team. They've done an amazing job. We have about 86% of the tests have been negative, and that gives us about a 14% positivity rate. We have experienced some false negatives as well. And so that has been experienced when they may test negative on the rapid test, which we are aware that would happen when they get the PCR test with their physician. Some of those cases that were negative actually ended up testing positive. We've also added another group of folks that we're beginning to test. So we're looking at sports teams now. So we have a sports team member who tests positive, we are of course able to test any of the students on that sports team, as well as any of our staff, our sports staff. That testing is available every 3 days for those staff or students who may have been exposed to a positive player, if you will. So that wraps up our return to school update this evening. And so I'm happy to take any questions that you all might have.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brown. Do I have any trustees with questions and or comments? Mr. Hogg.
Thank you, President Mays. And Ms. Brown, thank you for that. Ms. Brown, let me ask 2 questions. And I know the city is and going back to the family huddles that you talked about, and as I know the city is working on their equity plan, and we continually work on ours. On those family huddles, I know some of the city I think their recommendations are coming out that they'd like some of these items under education about getting parents more exposed to that. How do we communicate these family huddles to the city to help spread that communication plan? Is that a consistent reach out to them, or what do we do, or how do we work with the city to make sure those 2 things are aligning together?
What I can share that I do that I'm aware of, Trustee Hogg, is Aaron Perales, who runs our PACE department. He is a part of a lot of those conversations with like the Unity Council, which is a subcommittee, of course, of the group, and he is working in concert with communicating those resources to that particular committee. I'm not aware of anything specific, but I do know that he is a part of those conversations, and he has been regularly.
Okay, and I just say that to please make sure as we get those, our communication, it's a part. I know everything we do, what's our communication plan for it to go out? I think getting those out to the city, because it does take us across the board to make sure we're aware. Let me ask on the expansion of summer programs, what's the plan of like what percent? Are we doubling? Are we tripling? Do we think we'll quadruple the amount of students? I mean, listen, I think we'd all say we know there's a need for more students this summer to be in place. And so what's the multiplier that we're planning to expand by? And then my second question on that is, do we think we have enough staff members to cover that for this summer for our needs?
Great question. I'm going to ask Dr. Word to stand by for this. I will say that I do know that the team has been they're still in the planning stages right now. So we still have some more data that we're trying to uncover and, make sure that we have the appropriate strategies to address all the students who need the support. But I'll kick it over to Dr. Wertz and see if he wants to add something more specific about that.
Sure. Good evening. So that's actually a really good question, one that we are constantly thinking about just in terms of even staffing. What we're in the process of doing right now is looking at our data to establish what we are calling criteria for recommending which students should participate in summer programming. Typically, summer programming is usually used to supplement services for those that have failed, for example, or who aren't meeting mastery expectations. This year, we know that you could technically still be passing a course or a subject area and still just barely getting across the finish line, or still have achievement gaps that are there that were produced over the last year. So we're actually going to be expanding that criteria to also include what we call bubble students that are right on the edge that probably could just use additional support even though they're already passing. And so because we plan on extending that, we do know the volume of students will increase. So what we intend on doing is in the coming weeks is once we finish finalizing our design, then we will solicit some information from families to get a sense of which ones think that they will participate based on the recommendations, whether they want a virtual or an in-person environment, and then we'll be able to staff accordingly. We do anticipate it to, this is me just being very general right now, but I would anticipate that it would at least double in size. We do think that we're going to have access to teachers. What you noticed that Dr. Brown mentioned earlier that we will not be doing this year, which is a unique difference, is we're not going to be asking teachers to straddle both environments at the same time. We're gonna, if your parents will, if the students' families will allow their children to come in person, we will work to guarantee their safety like we always do, but they will receive direct instruction from the teacher in the classroom. And then students who will be receiving services in a virtual environment, the teacher hired for that circumstance will teach just the virtual environment. So all those things are kind of weighing in terms of how we decide how big it's going to be and how many people we can hire. But I think that we will be able to get there.
And I appreciate that, Dr. Ward. And listen, I know we don't have numbers yet, but I just think talking with my colleagues and then talking with other boards around the state, from what we have, and you guys have the concern of student achievement. We all have it right now about how we're going to get students caught up. And so the last thing I want to occur is, listen, our teachers are worn out. I think we all know that. So I'm a little worried about the number of summer teachers that are willing to teach into the summer from that standpoint. And then we talk about, the more in person, I think the better of summer. Now they have to be still socially distanced. So if we need to expand campuses, expand the number of teachers, I think this is the time, this is an investment in dollars to try and get young men and women caught up as much as they possibly can. You can't catch someone up in one summer for possibly a whole year and a half.
Right.
But I think I would, I'm speaking on behalf of one board member, but I think most of my colleagues would agree, whatever we need to do for this on student achievement is a critical factor. If we need to expand it, but we also need to, as we get closer, have an idea of what that excess budget cost is going to be for us on that allocation to get there. I think that's some of the best use of dollars we can have. And if it even causes us to reduce class sizes in that summer and it gets more in person, I think the more the better. And that is a great investment to get our young men and women caught up as much as possible this summer. So I'm not like sitting here saying it's a blank check, but I'm saying it's blank open ideas. We need to be open. We're not forcing the whole district to have an extended school year, but the more we have that we know need it, I think, not a lot of summer breaks this summer. Unfortunately, we got to do the work and get everyone caught up. So I appreciate the work y'all are putting into this. And I just would say on behalf of one board member, whatever the ask is, it's okay to ask and have that discussion with us, because I think we're ready and willing, and we all know there's a huge need for that to get our students, but then also making sure it's the right pieces to get our teachers where they need to be in the summer, because they are tired. And so if we have to do extra things to be able to help them, I think we have to do that this summer. So I appreciate it. That's all the questions I have.
Yeah, just really briefly, just to respond to you. We are being very collaborative with other departments and providing preliminary information about what we think the cost will be, but we are working hard to try to remove any barriers that would cause a student to choose not to participate, including the consideration of trying to ensure that the programming is accessible to the campus closest to where they live. So we're still working through the planning of those kinds of details, but our goal is to get as many students that need the services there and to eliminate any barriers that we think would prevent them from participating.
Perfect. I know the work you guys are doing, and I truly appreciate it. And I think we have a lot left to come still to get ready for this summer. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Hogg. Mrs. Fowler.
Yes, thank you, President Mays. I want to thank Dr. Wertz and Dr. Brown. I think this is some of the best use of our funding that we could move forward with. And I think this will probably give parents and students and even teachers a little bit of hope that maybe their son or daughter is not going to have to repeat the year, that they can get in there and get some work caught up and make some better understandings of the material. So I think that is so important that we're doing that and offering as many campuses close to their homes as we can to make sure that everyone has access. So thank you so much. I think this is a really good thing the district's doing.
Thank you, Mrs. Fowler. Any other trustees with questions and or comments? Okay, Mrs. Fowler.
I'm sorry, President Mays, one thing. Okay, so I understand that the summer school is to help students get caught up. Will we still be offering summer school for students that want to get ahead?
That's a good question. The answer is yes. So high school is probably, summer school is probably what looks as usual as normal because it's credit based and not necessarily just mastery based. It's mastery obviously, but you earn credit. So there will be course offerings for kids who want to accelerate for first time credit, as well as course offerings for students who need to recover credit. So both of those opportunities will be available.
Great, thank you, Dr. Wertz.
Thank you, Mrs. Fowler. Yes, Mr. Wilbanks.
Thank you, Ms. Fowler, for asking that question. That's important. I know there are a lot of families whose kids used last summer to accelerate. My kid being one of them, who's graduating a year early now, so partially because of that. Thank you, Mr. Hogg and Ms. Fowler too for your questions about the summer school. This is critical. I echo Mr. Hogg's comments about the ask because it is critical. You know, we talked before, it's I think a combination of this together with the proper strategy for remediation and interventions in the fall, with more of that just in time intervention where needed in the fall as we circle back around with some of the TEKs is critical. And I think, you know, obviously I'm sure this is part of a comprehensive strategy going forward. But this is the critical first step. And also, you know, the idea of the huddles, again, kudos, Ms. Brown and community engagement team. I think it's a great idea and loved getting the input on that. My question though, I won't repeat any of the questions my colleagues asked on the summer school, but it's tangential to the COVID and the testing. I know from talking to a number of teachers and admins and employees across the district, and my own daughter who is a supplemental instructor at TCC, they're all getting their notifications for the vaccine. Are we going to be tracking, or is there any kind of HIPAA violations so that we know where our employees are in terms of getting vaccinated against COVID?
Yeah, so I'll take that one, Dr. Brown, because we've had some discussion. So we're in that process, Mr. Wilbanks. We are not there yet in terms of keeping track of that. We are discussing it with legal and others about housing that information since it's not required, it's not mandated. We want to make sure that that we cover all our bases. So at this point, we're under discussion whether we would track that. because of the fact that it's simply not required, and we need to be careful with the information and things like that. So we don't have an answer tonight for that, but we are under discussion as to how we would track it, would we track it, and under what situation we would track it. So I suppose I could give you maybe a better example, is that when would it be important to know that information? And maybe we start with that end in mind, and that's what we're discussing is, so when would it be important to know that information, and then kind of work backwards, versus we want to know all that information without really having a destination, since it's not required. So that's the challenge, determining when we would want, why we would want to know that information, and when we would want to know that information, and then capturing it. You may be in a situation where that information would be important in discussing leave or absences and things like that. So that's kind of one of those, okay, this, if that's the outcome, then let's work backwards. But just to know and to have that, we're still under discussion on that, actually.
Well, and it's not something I think we would need to publish publicly, but I can think of situations where quarantine situations where it'd be nice to know if someone was saying, no, I'm ready to come back. Like, no, you got to stay out 10 days. And I don't know if that would be part of the, officially they would be allowed to under protocols anyway, because of how the vaccine works. But
exactly.
But there was that part of the question. And the other reason was, I think it's very important that we set the example for the community, and we encourage all of our teachers. And I know we've given
absolutely
free time to go take the virus. When my daughter went yesterday, she was in line in the car to get into the parking lot for over an hour. So I know it's not been quick sometimes, but whatever we can do to encourage our staff and set a good example for the community, I think is important.
Absolutely, and we do give we made that very clear from the very beginning, that the sign up occurred, that they could go during the day. It does create a challenge to cover classrooms, but we cover those classrooms, and also to make sure that people have access to that link. We've sent it out. We sent it out on my update to the community as well, because Tarrant County said just have people start signing up all over, and so we've sent that out. So yeah, I appreciate the comments, and that's an important effort.
I'm debating on my final question, and I'll save it for staff offline because it's not directly related to anything in our presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. Any other trustees with questions? Yes, Ms. Walton.
Thank you, President Mays. To Dr. Cavazos, where are we in the process or progress of getting our teachers classified at some point to be able, no matter what their age or circumstance is, to get the vaccine if they so choose? I know that we've had some conversation with the county about this, and would just like to know if there's been any progress in that regard.
It's a great question, Ms. Walton. And so currently the 1A and 1B are still the priority by the state, actually. And so that continues to be the priority. Of course, if you fall within that priority, regardless your age, if you have underlying conditions and things like that, which we're well aware of. So that continues. And so there's been some discussion in the state and county about moving some of those priorities, but it has not occurred. I think what the biggest challenge is the volume of the vaccine, and that continues to be. However, and this is not necessarily my area, but what we've been in discussion is that and it's been eminent, that's about to change in terms of volume, that the volume will increase significantly. So that being said, we have had communication with our local authorities that when the volume does increase and when those priorities change, because that's what it would take, is to open up the priorities, right? Just become more general, if you will, that we would be wanting to stand up our own sites in our schools. And they're very open to that discussion. Today, I'm just being very clear, they cannot support that because the emphasis, and again, rightfully so, the emphasis is these hubs, this big hubs like Arlington Convention Center. And that's an important emphasis. But when volume becomes much more readily accessible, which they're predicting will be soon, relatively speaking, then we are in communication about when that happens, we want to be some of those sites when they go more mobile, if you will. Today, they're not talking about mobile, and I understand, but we are already having that discussion in preparation where we could be one of those mobile sites at our high schools or other places, because that would be serviced well. But remember, that would have to be volume and a change in the, or opening, I should say, in the priorities and things like that. So to your point, Ms. Walton, we are assertively pursuing that. We know there are limits, and that's, we've all understand that those are the limits, but we want to be prepared when that volume increases and the availability and the priorities begin to open up. We want to be prepared with our own sites and things like that. And so that's active communication at this point. Thank you for the question.
Well, thank you for continuing to work with the county and others to pursue that. I think that's the right direction, and encourage everyone involved to get our teachers vaccinated. I think that's the quickest way that we can get our schools open, is to get those teachers vaccinated. We just don't have the space to get everybody in our school buildings. So we can't do all of the protocols that, you know, the CDC says we need to do as far as social distancing and that sort of thing. So, you know, I think it's imperative for our district and other urban districts probably to really do everything we can to get our teachers vaccinated. Thank you.
If I could hop
Yes.
on for more clarification on Dr. Cavazos' response. When you say the priority is A1 and B1, are educators not in A1 or B1?
It's actually 1A and 1B. And they are, yeah, and they are, if you have those underlying conditions, it's anybody who has those underlying conditions, or if you're over 65. So it's that anybody who falls into that group, those are the people. Now, we have teachers and staff and others who fall into those groups, right, into those priorities. But it's that's what is open right now, those priorities.
Yeah, I would encourage all of our staff to go ahead and sign up.
And that's
my daughter does have a health condition, but it's not one of the conditions listed on 1A, 1B. And she signed up within a week. Yesterday, she got the vaccine. And I know out of the half a dozen or so educators I know that have received it, majority of them don't have underlying conditions. So it sounds like, you know, if they've got space and you're an educator, there's I hate to use anecdotal data and encourage people, but based on what I'm seeing, I would encourage all of our staff to go ahead and sign up.
And Mr. Wilbanks, that's exactly what we've done. We've asked everybody who wants to sign up, and they have the link, and we sent it out even to our community, because Tarrant County said, just keep sending that link out. And yes, they want people to sign up. And so as they move through priorities and move through their own methodology with volume and things like that, they want to have the people signed up. So yes, that's accurate.
Thank you, Dr. Cavazos. Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. Any other questions or comments from trustees? Yes, Dr. Rush.
Thank you, President Mays. And thank you, Dr. Brown, for the information, the presentation. As always, this has become a normal in our new normal, so to speak. And I appreciate you bringing this to us all the time, and know that there are so many hands that are on this, all these different groups to make this presentation possible for us. So many people across the district. So thank you so very much for all of that. I just want to put that out there, that it seems like it's commonplace at this point, but know that we still know that this is Herculean lifts all the time. So one of the questions that I have along the lines of summer school, you know, right now we know and are becoming more and more aware of the mental strain, mental health, social emotional impact that our staff and our students are experiencing. So I was curious, and I'm looking at it from a health standpoint, a holistic health standpoint, body, mind, spirit, if you will, regarding summer school. If we're going to have a component of mental health or counseling during summer school, I know that there's talks about what we're doing in general in addressing this and always adding on opportunities. But I was just curious because that it could very well be that as much extra that we offer, it's not going to move the needle much if they're still in balance in other places. And before I let you respond, I got to put it out there to all of our counselors because they're involved in this. Happy National School Counselor Week. We so appreciate everything that you're doing as counseling staff. It's just incredible. So please, I'm very curious what's in store regarding that.
Sure, so I can answer that. So we're currently working with a team to identify a way to address both therapeutic services for students as well as social, emotional, general services in a school. So as you know, the counseling program at the state level has 4 components, and one of them is guidance and counseling, which also include opportunities for kids to receive other services like academic counseling and things like that. We know that there are some students that will require therapeutic services, and we know that they actually need that now. So we're in the process of investigating what community resources we have options to access during the school day that will allow students to actually gain access to those services even now or during the school year or at summer programming. The other thing that we're looking at is how do we allow for opportunities for kids to even have this guidance lesson. So what we're trying to assess right now is the volume of staff we would need to hire and what their programmatic options would be so that we could infuse it into the classroom. As Dr. Brown mentioned earlier, we really are trying to create kind of a unique program this year, one that motivates students to come. So besides just coming to school simply for literacy or math, we also want you to engage in extracurricular type things that are actually fun because, you know, it's summer. We want you to have fun while you're in your summer months too. So what we're thinking about doing is how do we, on top of that, infuse opportunities for SEL. We're not exactly sure whether it would look like, whether it's full-time counselor at each site, or whether we have a specific, a rotating kind of scenario where teacher or counselors are providing guidance and therapeutic service to students who are at need. We're still kind of working out that detail, but it's very much in our discussion right now.
Great. Yeah, it's something that we certainly need right now. I think going forward, this is one of those things that is probably going to be worked into the normal process as we look at the whole student. So thank you for that. One other question that I had wasn't covered this time, but it has been previously. I was just curious if the percent of virtual versus in person at our elementary and junior high levels has changed, what that mix might look like right now compared to what it was, you know, a few months ago. And then also if there's any correlation to you know, failure rates or success rates, you know, whether it's through grades or assessments to that, to see if, you know, virtual has a higher spike or not. And I don't know, I don't want to catch you off guard if you're not prepared to have that type of information. I know you're talking about it all the time, so I was just curious about that.
Did you want me to answer? Do you want to take it?
No, go ahead. Yeah, I'd just say that it's within a context, Dr. Rice, because that's still something that is very active. And, yeah, you know, we don't want to overgeneralize. We want to be careful with that because we're still right in the middle of that examination as grades are coming in, who's having better success. And so, go ahead, Dr. Rice.
No, I think that pretty much sums up what I was going to say too. You know, we've been looking at trying to triangulate and understand how kids are doing by surveying, understanding the teacher's perspective, and then hearing from the students. We've done that at the high school. But the complexity of defining first what you call success and how you measure that in this environment is the root of trying to understand that answer. Our makeup of student body in terms of virtual versus stay home, it's been pretty consistent now for a while. But it looks a little also different in high school, right? Because if you're a high school student, you actually have both feet in both sides the whole time. Whereas in junior high and elementary, you're one or the other. So this is a question I would say that as a team, we probably dig into more regularly than any other question that there is. But it is very complex to truly understand. And to Dr. Cavazos' point, it's really understanding specifically what success is, because there's one mode of success, which you would say is grades. And then there's another, which actually says, are you earning credit on track for graduation? Right. And then there's another one that says, how are those related to actually mastery standards? So all of those things are components that we're still trying to understand.
I certainly appreciate that response. And with our legislative session underway right now, I wish our legislators would have that complete approach as well when they're discussing the administering of STAR exams, et cetera, as one of the metrics, broad brush versus what we're really trying to articulate here. So thank you for the very intelligent approach to it. And yeah, I hope that you're able to come up with some things and identify all those as you're working on this whole summer school thing, that population and the ones that are on the bubble or in the bubble, on the bubble, as you say. And it's just so important. Teachers are working so hard. Students are, engagement's an item for discussion, the mental health. There's just so many things all at once here. So I really appreciate all of the bandwidth that you're absorbing, constantly addressing this for our primary focus, which is that student achievement. So that's all I have. Thank you.
That's right. And I'll add, it's been mentioned, and Dr. Rice, you certainly touched upon this. It's been a general theme, and I just want to kind of name it, right? And that is that as important as summer school is and this summer programming and all that we talked about tonight, it is simply one piece of the puzzle. We will be entering a recovery period for our students and our staff as well, in terms of how they're instructing and things. And so it'll take time, and we've alluded to that. We should also be clear that this is like one piece of the puzzle. And to Mr. Hogg's point, it'll be an investment. Dr. Rice, you mentioned an investment in social emotional learning, counseling, et cetera. There are many pieces to that investment that we anticipate will be coming because we know that this has been very disruptive in just our students' lives, our families, our staff. And so that recovery period will be extended. We're having this summer school discussion. We'll have likely another summer school discussion for the next summer. And how do those things connect in a continuum of recovery for our students and their academic? And one reason that, we talk about your question, and it's challenging to answer, is because we may have students, and we know, because we've been studying this, that are passing, but do not feel emotionally successful. And so to just say, well, you passed, is not enough. And we know that, and we're trying to take that approach of saying, no, you may be passing, but you're telling us in another aspect that you're not connected, and you've actually lost ground. And then the other thing is, you're passing, but you used to pass really well before. Or, and Mr. Chapa and I have had some of this discussion, you're passing really well under this environment. Well, what is happening there that's making this situation so successful? So we want to be careful with overgeneralizing with our failure rates or our passing rates, because it's so much deeper. Are you passing at rates you're used to passing? Are you getting to Dr. Wertz's question? Are you failing your core subjects, but you're passing your electives? And that's not really making movement towards, reclassification of students. So that's a journey, I think, that we're in and on to make sure our students are successful over time. And that's going to take deliberate effort. And to Mr. Hogg's point from the very beginning, it's going to take deliberate investment in those things. So I appreciate that was alluded to. I just thought I'd make it a little more obvious.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I guess one other thing that came to my mind back to the vaccination discussion and registration specifically, and Dr. Cavazos, I mentioned this to you. It might be a good thing. What I've been interested in is I don't know what the data is specifically, if it's available yet or not from our county, but I would presume that our registration rates in our underserved populations, our socioeconomically disadvantaged, our populations of color, the rates of registration and vaccination are probably going to match what it has been historically in other communities around the country, which is that it's just not enough. And we are such a great vessel in the community to be able to help in that regard with doing some type of a vaccination, or not a vaccination, pardon me, a registration drive for those individuals in our areas of town that we have those kind of concentrations. And so it was something that I'm interested in doing personally as a trustee, but probably better well spent as a suggestion to our PACE department to engage and kind of coordinate with the city or the county what that looks like, whether it's bringing access into the campus or the parking lots or some other facility. Because, you know, to your point, Dr. Cavazos, those at some point the vaccines are coming in a larger amount, and the logistics of that is a completely different conversation than who's in line to get all of that. And I fear that we're going to be probably along those same lines where we have an opportunity here. I wouldn't want it to be a missed opportunity to help our community that we're trying to reach out to, that I think are probably on the low end of those registrations right now. So I'll just put that out there as something to consider, and maybe we can have further discussions about that. But just that the sooner we can get things going, the sooner we're out of this mess.
Yep, absolutely, Dr. Rice. And I think we've taken that first step, and the county has kind of asked, you know, for some help to take that first step of messaging through our communication to families to sign up, even if you're not eligible to sign up. And I think that's the first step, to your point, Dr. Rice, of messaging that, and then at some point, with collaboration with other entities, to actually help sign up that registration, help people, help our parents, etc. But the first step was, hey, they just message it out there, send it through our channels that sign up, even if you're not eligible right now, sign up, because when that day comes, to your point, Dr. Rice, they want everybody to be signed up, so that's not a barrier.
Yeah, and our parent and community engagement department has wonderfully implemented the vision that we had in the strategic plan of truly what that says in those plain words: engaging the parents in the community. And it's related to all the opportunities that we have for parents, for students to achieve. And this is another prime example to engage, help engage our community, because it's worked. There's so many more positive attributes and movements from communities that before we just could not connect with, and they are connecting. So not to put so much weight on that department, but they've tried and true, and he can certainly, the department can certainly make that happen. So thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reich. Any other questions or comments from trustees? Okay, Dr. Brown and Dr. Wirtz, thank you both very much. I just have two very quick questions. One, for the deadline of not passing February the 12th of 2021, how are we publicizing that to not only the students, but also to any parents who may need to know that information as well? How are we getting that information out over the next week that we may have left?
So my office drafted a letter, and we sent it to every student in the district. So we had it published in Spanish and English, and mailed directly to the homes of the parents for each student. to make that available, as well as work with the communication department to make sure the information was accessible, online. So we in the letter we also encourage families not only about the deadline, but reemphasize where they can locate access to the parent portal and how to do that. So just to encourage people to continually check on their child's grades so they can monitor their own students' progress. But that all went out, I want to say, I received my own letter probably like a week and a half ago, maybe. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So everybody gets a letter, whether you're eligible or not. We thought a direct mail to the parents per child actually was the best way. And to Ms. Fowler, I think you brought this up way back about parent self-serve, continuing to reinforce how people can sign up for that. And so it's in this letter again, even though we've messaged that a lot, of how this is how you can keep track of what's going on with your kids' grades.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I just want to make sure that we are using every resource that we can to make sure to notify, encourage, not just the students, but the parents, because obviously as much as we can catch now, that helps to relieve what we still know we will need to do in the summertime. So thank you for that. And then my last question was for the 6 weeks in the summer, I think it was stated that you can either do virtual or in person, one or the other. We're not doing the hybrid model. Will a parent have an opportunity to switch? Let's say if those first 2-3 days are like, okay, this is why you weren't passing in the first place. Now can I switch them to in person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
will there be an option to switch at least, once?
That's a good question, and we'll probably we'll have to work out an opportunity for that, because to the point that was made earlier, we do believe the closer we can get back to the way teaching and learning typically happened, the better. And so, yeah, if parents find that their child started in virtual, but in the second half, for example, the second 3-week period, they really, I'm just making this up, for example, they wanted to go for face-to-face, we can. What we'll have to do is figure out a protocol to make sure that there's adequate staff to cover that. Because the way we are currently designing it, we would hire staff for one or the other. And so what we might find ourselves in a scenario is if the volume, say, for example, of requests to come back at a specific school no longer really needs a virtual teacher, it would be switching that from a virtual environment into a personal environment, in-person environment. So that's part of the protocol that we have to work through. But I do suspect we're going to have some mechanism that will allow a parent to change their choice to the circumstance of their child change.
Thank you very much for answering that question. I won't add a lot of comments because we already have. Once again, thank you all so much for everything you're doing. Every time, Dr. Brown, you give this presentation, it just reminds me of those buildings that you're in where they have the elevators that only go from floor 1 to 12. Then you have to get on another set if you want to go between floors of 13 or whatever. I just see y'all getting and bouncing and going here when you get to floor 12. Based on what may happen, and you got to go down to floor 6, and it's just so appreciate the work that y'all are doing. And trust me, we understand that it's not logistically as easy as y'all put the presentations together and present it. So thank you. And when it comes to student achievement, that's part of our job of governance and oversight. That's part of our mission. So anything that will help to continue to exceed in student achievement, we're supporting. So thank you very much for that. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is if there is any discussion or any motions necessary to what's been stated. Dr. Cavazos?
There are no motions necessary tonight for that.
Okay. Once again, thank you for that update. Okay, next on our agenda are items to be withdrawn from the consent agenda. Are there any items to be withdrawn from the consent agenda from any of the trustees? I see none. So tonight we will be considering the items listed on the agenda. Ms. Moss?
President Mays, trustees, Dr. Cavazos, tonight we have donations totaling $170,034, bringing our year-to-date total to $506,811. We have 3 bids that we're bringing tonight for your consideration. Those bids have been vetted by our purchasing department for our policy, and administration is recommending approval for all consent agenda items tonight.
Thank you very much, Ms. Moss. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion to accept the consent agenda.
Okay.
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ms. Fowler. We got 2 seconds, so a second by Dr. Reich. Are there any discussions? Seeing none, we will have our roll call vote. Ms. Walton?
Polly Walton, I vote yes.
Mr. Wilbanks?
David Wilbanks, I vote yes.
Mrs. Fowler?
Melody Fowler, I vote yes.
Mr. Chapa?
Justin Chapa, I vote yes.
Dr. Reich?
Aaron Reich, I vote yes.
Mr. Hogg?
Lee Hogg, I vote yes.
Keisha Mays, I vote yes. Motion passes in the affirmative. Thank you very much, Ms. Moss. Okay, next we will discuss, moving right along on our agenda, our discussion item for the evening. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Mays. And tonight, we want to give the board an update on our leadership development work that's been happening in the district. And while it may seem like this is a topic and it kind of is, you know, over here and we're going to give a lot of detail and a lot of information, it actually is fundamental to the work that we're doing during this pandemic, because it is the investment in leadership across the district, teacher leadership, all the way through principal, assistant principal, central office, et cetera. It's that investment in leadership that has allowed and given us, I think, the strength and the capacity to deal with the pandemic. And so we've been investing in leadership development for a number of years now with partnership with Holdsworth, as you're well familiar with. And sometimes, you know, what I share with staff is that we knew the investment was important, but we really have reaped the benefits during this time because we have built tremendous capacity across the district for people to lead and to lead their work and lead it exceptionally well. So tonight you'll hear detail about also building that pipeline of talent so that that leadership doesn't kind of stop from one year to the next or that development, but it actually continues over a period of time throughout the system. And so that development of a pipeline is also critical in sustaining and driving excellence in our district. And so a lot, and this is another one of those examples where there are a lot of individuals, from lead principals to lead teachers to staff members, through other focus groups that have their hands in this work, because that's how this work has been developed. It's with the input and the feedback and the strength of the people we have in the district. We have done surveys and we have done different feedback groups, and then we have done action plans and things like that to develop that leadership throughout the district. And so I'm very proud of this work that has been done over a number of years and different phases. And we're at the point now that that we're really deep in that work. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Brown. And as you've mentioned before, she leads this work, but with a lot of support from area superintendents and principals, et cetera. So Dr. Brown, take us through this leadership work that we're doing in the district.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Cavazos. And I'm back. President Mays, members of the board, and of course, Dr. Cavazos. Thank you for the opportunity this evening to talk about Aspire AISD. Dr. Cavazos laid the foundation very well for the work that we've done over the last few years. And the last time I presented an update to you all, it was about a year ago. And so you're going to be amazed at the work that's been accomplished by a cross section of people in our system to help us get to the place that we are today. And ultimately, we are Aspire AISD, and we look to take everyone's leadership to new heights. So John Maxwell says the single best way to impact an organization is to focus on leadership development. There's almost no limit to the potential of an organization that recruits good people, raises them up as leaders, and continually develops them. And that has been our mission. It's been what we've been charged with by our superintendent to make sure we are squarely focused on growing our people and developing them in their current role and their aspiring role. So with that, we know that great leadership is critical. in critical roles is really connected to student achievement. We know that we have great leaders in our system, but it's our job to identify and develop them and support them so we can continue to unleash the potential of our students. And that, of course, is our charge with Aspire AISD. So now I'm going to just kind of share with you an overview of the large body of work. Yes, we've been working through a pandemic, and we consider this very much an integral part of our work. And I'm excited to share an overview with you today of what we're working on this year. So with Aspire AISD, we have 5 different layers of work. And some of the layers will go into a little bit of detail today. And then the teacher leadership work we're going to focus on during our next board meeting. And I know that you're going to be awed by the work that our lead teachers have been engaged in. But right now, from spring 21 until next spring of 22, we'll be focusing on developing out our teacher central office and our school leadership pathway. Our teacher leadership pathway is the furthest along. We're very proud of that, but we still have some continued work to do with looking at role descriptions and jobs and aligning it to our leadership definition. I'll talk to you more about that in just a moment. We also are launching our Aspire AISD micro badging for aspiring principals, identified leaders. Last year, we did some piloting work, lots of piloting work. This one with Bloom Board, which is an organization that supports leaders in earning micro badges. We spent lots of time with our area superintendent, Dr. McDonald, who's leading this work. And she worked with Bloom Board to make sure that the modules and the learning that our leaders were engaging in are aligned to our leadership definition. And so that's great work that we just had the orientation for actually yesterday evening. We also have this year our AIM program, and that is Administrators in Mentorship. We're launching this spring. We had orientation for this last week, and Dr. Christy Buell is leading this work. We have 20 identified aspiring principals who will be engaging in this work this year, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about what that looks like in just a moment. Believe it or not, we're not finished. We are also launching Aspire AISD Leadership Academy, and this is for those who are mostly teachers who seek to be an AP or a dean. We didn't have a formal way of being able to track who those high potential teachers are who are interested in serving in school leadership. And so now with this process, we'll be able to identify them and bring them on board to support them towards their aspiring role. The last one, again, we've been piloting and doing a lot of work over the last couple of years with this, but really developing an identification process. We're able to identify high potential leaders and then craft development opportunities for them in their current role and of course towards their aspiring role. So that's the huge body of our work. And now I'll go into a little bit of detail about some of these components, again, saving our teacher leadership work for the next board meeting on February 18th. So we started first with our leadership definition. I know that you all have seen this triangle before, and I thought it was important that we just bring you back to it today because this is really the foundation for all of the work that we've engaged in. We took about a year to really develop this leadership definition, and Dr. Wirtz led this charge. We had a cross section of people from the district, from campus level employees, central office, all different roles, to be able to come together and do some research and digging around and seeing what other organizations are, how they define leadership. And through that process, we were able to identify our leadership definition. We have 3 categories: passion for the work, commitment to personal growth, and dedication to the team. Each of those categories have indicators that are underneath them, and those indicators really outline specific behaviors and dispositions that our leaders should embody. And we thought this was the most important part of this work because everything should be rooted in our leadership definition, and you'll see that alignment throughout the work that I'm sharing with you tonight. As a part of our leadership definition, we thought it was important that we have a guide for campus level leaders and for central office leaders to be able to go a little bit deeper into these leadership definition indicators. It's real easy to say high expectations is what we expect from our leaders, but we have to go into specific, concrete, actionable behaviors that we expect to see at all levels of the organization. For example, our leaders guide starts with leader of self, and that could be someone, for example, maybe a classroom teacher or someone who does not have any direct reports. And they understand and can read what are the specific behaviors and dispositions as a leader of self that I should embody. But if I know that I'm looking to become a leader of the organization, for example, I want to become a principal eventually, then I need to start reading and studying those dispositions of those as a leader of the organization so I can start working towards my aspiring role. And that's one of the reasons why we thought it was so important that we develop these leadership levels guide, so everyone transparently can see what's expected of them as a leader in our system, because all of us are leaders. And then they can, of course, towards their aspiring role, be able to determine what those indicators might be they need to continue to focus on. Another part of this work that we're still just in the nascent stages of is really goal setting, not in an evaluative space, but really being able to, across our organization, have our staff members, regardless of role, identify a leadership definition indicator that you want to focus on for the year. If I know that strategic thinking and decision-making is an area of opportunity for me, or maybe a gap, I would be able to work with my supervisor to identify some specific strategies and activities I can engage in that might be able to help me strengthen that particular indicator. Again, across the organization, this is something that we are aspiring to do. We're not quite there yet. We're still working on this part of the process, but we are in this, we're in the beginning stages of that work. The second part of our leadership work is reimagining roles and looking at job descriptions. And this primarily right now has been centered in the teacher leadership pathway. So you'll hear lots more about it next week. But what we essentially are doing is conducting focus groups of staff members, teachers, school leadership. We've started that as well. Central office, we've not quite gotten to, but basically looking at each of these job descriptions and really aligning the specific responsibilities of these leaders with our leadership definition. Again, how can we make sure that our leadership definition is alive and that's really becomes a part of the fabric of our organization? And so reimagining those roles is something that we've started with teachers with some of those roles, and will continue through our central office leadership pathway. Again, not in an evaluative space, but really just about goals and understanding what the indicators mean, and aligning those indicators with specific roles in our district. The third part of our work is developing the leadership pathways. And so the data has driven our why. As a part of our partnership with Holdsworth Center, we've conducted surveys the first couple of years. We have another survey coming out this year as well. And some of that data from the survey, which we spent quite a bit of time analyzing, discussing, finding trends and identifying, making connections to different data points. And principals and teachers in general did not believe that the highest potential folks were identified early and moved into the positions to help develop their capacities. In fact, there was not a formal system in Arlington to track the readiness of aspiring leaders. And so anytime we always come back to, I should say, our why. Why are we doing this work? Why is it important? And just to say the data has driven our why, it continues to drive our why. And we're happy to see that we're seeing progress with our survey results as teachers and other leaders are seeing the fruits of our labor thus far. So here are the three pathways for career progression. This is what I call the leadership pathways. So you can see here, we have the teacher leadership pathway. We have this, and this is not an exhaustive list of all the roles that a teacher could be engaged in. What we wanted to do was identify the most prominent ones and really be able to build the leadership definition around those roles and create growth opportunities for those who are in those roles or those who aspire to be in that role. If I'm a teacher right now and I don't have any leadership position or any kind of a role, for example, but I know that I want to be a department lead, here's the job description. Here are some discrete responsibilities that are expected of a department leader. Here are some leadership indicators we would expect a department leader to embody. And here are some learning opportunities you might be able to engage in to help ready yourself for that role. So as you see with a teacher leadership, we have two that are in bold. One is a model teacher, which will be a new role that we're piloting in 21-22, and district lead teacher. We piloted that last year. This year, we've added 2 more district lead teachers, and you're going to hear directly from 2 lead teachers next board meeting, who are going to walk you through the work they've engaged in for the last year and a half to really build out this teacher leadership track. It was very important to us that we had teachers leading those focus groups, that we had teachers leading the conversation with other teachers versus having me go talk to them or an area superintendent or someone else in our district. Our school leadership pathway looks very similar to the roles that we already have, except for the lead principal role. We did pilot the lead principal last year along with the lead teacher. And this year we are very excited about the lead principals that we continue to have who are helping us craft so much of this work while they're still leading their own schools. And then central office leadership. Those are the roles we'll be focusing on, again, revising job descriptions, aligning to the leadership definition, and providing learning opportunities for those who are aspiring to lead in those roles. Central office leadership is probably still a couple of years out, to be very candid. We are really trying to build out our teacher and school leadership first, and then we'll continue to build out the other pathway as well. That's just a broad overview of the pathways work that we have in our system. The next part is identification of high potential APs and deans. We've probably spent about 3 years building this out. And part of it is because we had to spend time doing lots of research with the Holdsworth Center, visiting organizations. We visited GE, we visited Boston Consulting Group. We've been lots of places understanding how their organizations develop leaders. And one thing we want to be known for as an organization is that we have clear systems to identify talent. And you'll hear us reference talent. Instead of an AP or a dean or a teacher, we will say talent. And that's really how we seek to have the conversation about our people. So if we are operating wholly in that system, we have a system where no high potential leaders are overlooked. We know that we have untapped talent in this district. I will tell you through this identification process, we've seen some of the untapped talent that if we had not had the strategic way to look at talent, we may have possibly missed. And that's something we are really taking serious. And we want to have that across the system, that we're able to look and examine across all roles. We want to be an organization that acts responsibly to identify those high potentials, that everyone in the organization is responsible for developing their people. And we want to have a system that we can track systematically our high potential leaders so that we can spot them early, provide them the right development experiences, and then set them up to be successful in their new role if that's what they choose. And ultimately, it would lead to a better retention in our organization and better engagement of people who feel valued and feel seen. And that's something that's very important to us as a part of this work. So our APs and deans, we started last year piloting and just really getting our data systems together to be able to identify APs and deans with several data sets to be able to determine what types of growth and learning experiences they would get in the course of a year. So every single AP and dean in our district engaged in a self-assessment against the leadership definition. They looked at all 16 of those leadership definition indicators. They rated themselves. They looked at what artifacts and evidence would support their rating, very similar to what we do with our evaluation system as well. And then they met with their principals, and we call that a talent talk. So the principal met with each AP and each dean on their campus to discuss the talent's self-assessment in each of the indicators, to look at artifacts, to look at evidence. From that point, the principal then, after the talent talk with their talent, they inputted the data into our portal. Once we received that data from the leadership definition, our assessment accountability team, led by Dr. Barlow, took the leadership data, definition data, also assessed with our TPES indicators, also pulled data from TPES, as well as a Gallup survey as well. And we were able to then crunch all that data. I didn't crunch the data. I'm not a statistician, but we're able to find a rhythm to be able to crunch the data to determine 4 categories of growth opportunities for people in our district for APs and deans. That's a ready leader, a rising leader, an emerging leader, and a growing leader. And once we know what those categories are, the principal and the talent were able to meet. They actually met either this week or they're meeting next week to determine, now that you know where you landed, that you're a rising leader, let's talk about some specific learning opportunities that should be designed solely for you. We wanted to take out, there's no guesswork with this, take out the guesswork. It's all transparent. This is an actual learning plan from one of our leaders, and every single AP and Dean has a leadership learning plan aligned to the leadership definition. So they know what type of leader they're in as a result of our identification process. They know their actual ratings for the leadership definition. And then we wanted to make sure we had focused leadership definition indicators that they wanted to really be able to highlight. For example, this particular AP talent, they landed on strategic thinking and decision maker and coaching and feedback. So through this mid-year talent talk, the principal and the talent, they were able to determine what are some specific actions that I want to engage in between now and the rest of the year, that you can be my accountability partner and you can help coach me through it so that I can get stronger in this particular indicator. And the reason why this is so awesome and exciting is our lead principals solely are responsible for creating a menu of learning opportunities for the talent. So if I know that strategic thinking and decision-making is an area of opportunity for me, I don't have to guess and figure out like, what should I work on? What should I focus on? We have opportunities already built out for you that you and the talent can be able to choose from to help continue your growth opportunity. And through this process, it's really allowing principals to have direct conversations with their APs and deans about areas where you're super strong and then where we can continue to grow your capacity toward in your current role and towards your aspiring role. And the last part is providing growth and development opportunities for the talent. And so our goal ultimately is that everyone in our organization, we've been charged with growing, and we talk about growing and developing people as one of our three key priorities in our system. So everyone is responsible for growing in their role. We have a small subset of people that we've identified to continue developing, and that is at the district level, providing opportunities for engagement and development towards their aspirational role. So our goal through this is to make sure that we're providing job-embedded experiences for identified leaders in Arlington. That's aligned with the career pathways progress. We know that people learn to do by doing. And same thing for our students and same thing for us as adults. We want to make sure providing those opportunities for them to have those experiences that are unique to them and what their specific needs are. And then of course, we know through that process, we're going to be able to assess our bench a lot better of who are already leaders. And once they feel invested in and they feel seen, they feel valued, we know that we'll be able to continue to retain our top talent in our system. So here are those couple of opportunities that I mentioned. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into this work. You'll see at the very bottom, we have lead principals. We have two groups of lead principals, 9 in total actually, who are leading these two streams of work with the help of an area superintendent. So our Aspire AISD micro badging process, we have 60 leaders, actually 61 leaders who are engaged in that program. In that program, they are assigned to a lead principal. The lead principal will meet with them every 3 weeks as they're engaging in their online module through Bloomboard, and they'll walk them through and work with them on how they're applying their learning. They'll work with other cohort members who are also engaging in a similar badging process to be able to make sure they have someone just kind of to talk to and process. We had orientation for this yesterday, and I can't tell you how excited we are about these lead principals who are leading this group of aspiring principals through this process. We also have 20 leaders who are joining AIM this year. We had orientation last week for AIM, and this is 20 leaders who've been identified through our identification process, working with Dr. Buell and 5 of our lead principals. Through this process, our AIM cadre will be assigned to a lead principal for coaching and mentoring and support. They'll be engaged in professional learning, but most importantly, they will have job-embedded experiences where they'll have to apply their learning in their current space and really help them start thinking as if they're in the role of the principal. How would that look? How would you contextualize the problem of practice that you're focusing on for your school? And how would you handle that work as a principal? So lots of side-by-side work with Dr. Buell and the lead principals through this AIM mentoring program. Again, 2 new processes that we're starting this spring, and we're super excited to begin this work. and you thought we were finished, but we're not quite finished. Our Aspire AISD Leadership Academy, called ALA, is for aspiring APs and deans. We, in the fall, I believe it was November, we launched a survey where we wanted to know every single teacher who chose to complete it, are you interested in a leadership position? If so, what might the position be? Is it department lead? Is it level lead? Is it AP? Is it dean? From that, we were able to assess the readiness of some of our folks for AP and dean positions, for example, if they're already certified and credentialed. So we had a batch of people who we knew might be candidates for ALA. We are very pleased to say that we've had 85 applicants for our first ALA cohort. 60 of those are teachers and 25 are in other support roles instructionally. And we're looking to take 30 to 40 leaders through, again, an Aspiring Leadership Academy this spring, led by Dr. Turner, another one of our area superintendents. Right now, we're actually in the process of looking at applications. We have a selection committee who's going through that, and we're very excited about really supporting teachers who are looking to go into school leadership through this process. So, I talked about the experiential learning and learning to do by doing. We want to make sure that 70% at least of our work is really about on-the-job kind of performance support, job embedded, that some of that is mentoring and coaching, 20% of that, and that we spend the least amount of time in formal kind of sit and get training. We know that's a very important part of the work because people have to apply their learning, but we also know that people learn to do by doing. So really having a mixture of professional development experiences for the talent that we have in these, especially in these 3 programs. So we read a book as a part of our Holdsworth experience called The Talent Masters. And one of the authors, Ram Charan, actually spent a couple of days with us really digging deep into this work. And one of the things that I would say that we learned from this experience is that it's our responsibility as an organization to understand the talent that we have to invest in our people. And if we invest in them, we'll be able to retain those irreplaceables. And we know that we have so many who we don't want to leave our system. So it's our job to identify them, develop them, and grow them, and then place them in a right fit role that's appropriate for them. So next steps with our work, teacher leadership pathway. So this is actually an infographic that our communications team created for our leadership pathway work. You're going to be blown away next time we meet. I know I've said that already, but I'm so proud of the district lead teachers and the over 150 teachers who've been a part of helping us develop the content for this pathway. And you'll learn more about that in the coming couple of weeks. I'm excited to share that with you in just 2 short weeks. All right, so I'm happy to take any questions that you all might have from the presentation.
Thank you once again, Dr. Brown, for that presentation. Trustees with questions or comments. Dr. Reich?
Thank you, President Mays. Thank you, Dr. Brown. Wow, that's great. I'm just about speechless, honestly. The developing leaders has been part of our strategic plan for a long, long time. And we've been doing it for a long, long time in many levels. And these things that you're talking about that are being implemented now and rolled out, we knew those were needs back then. And it's just a matter of time and capacity building and internal growth. And it began before Holdsworth. Holdsworth has been a great catalyst since then. So it's just phenomenal to see this type of structure for talent management in the district. I think it will lead to a much greater level of satisfaction internally as far as employees and opportunities and pathways, and as you said that it's all about leadership, and that will lead to tremendous gains, I believe, in student achievement. So it's just phenomenal. So I have one request. I'm very interested in really diving into these things. Any access copies that I could get or we could get to the, the different leadership levels guides, just the materials in general. I'm really intrigued by this process. I think it's certainly going to pay dividends. My question, just out of curiosity, this specific work, I know you mentioned that the company that you were have engaged with, the micro badging or digital badging. Is there other companies that you've been working with, or is this all internal development for what you've displayed here this evening?
It is internal development, Dr. Reich. I will say that. However, we have done lots of research. We've visited lots of places. We've read a lot, and we've synthesized lots of information to be able to come up with this, and also relied on stakeholder input to really be able to craft it to where it works for our system.
Yeah. And that's what I suspected. And we've learned through our strategic planning process that engaging the stakeholders for that relevancy is key. And that's what you just described for the success. And my point in questioning on that, because that is what I thought would be the response, is this is just tremendous. In the middle of everything that the district has been going through in the past year and a half, basically, through COVID and all of those pivots, you're still marching toward our vision in our plan towards those goals. And kudos. I'm very, very impressed with the amount of work. And we've said it at previous meetings. This is one more example of how, with all of that going on, you're still handling those quote unquote day-to-day activities. But these are transformational, paradigm shifting opportunities that have not been available before. So I'm looking forward to diving into all those specifics, and the part two as well. These are things that I've heard from individuals around the district for a long, long time. Boy, I wish we had, or I don't know how. And here it is, so well articulated. So thank you very much. I just wanted to put those comments out there. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Reich.
Thank you, Dr. Reich. Ms. Fowler?
Yes, thank you, President Mays. Dr. Brown, can you kind of explain to me the difference in the model that our district is using compared to what some of the other schools are doing, like UTA? I know they have a program for people trying to get their principal or superintendent certification. So is the model that you're working on, is it similar to that, or are they two very different things?
So can you explain a little bit more about the question that you're asking?
Yes, at UTA, they have a program that teachers can go through that are looking to be principals or superintendents. And it's a program that they go through kind of like a certification. And the program and the model that you're talking about here within the district, I wanted to know how it's similar to schools like UTA and how it's different. Does your model take the place of them getting that certification at UTA, or are they two different models or programs?
Okay, got you now. Two different models. So we don't have a credentialing part to this work. So they will go through a university for the credentials. However, we are working on something that could potentially provide a partnership with that. So this is really about growing people who want to be a department leader, or if you want to be an AP and Dean and you're certified, here are some opportunities for you that we can provide for you as a system. We don't offer the credentialing support right now. However, we do share and communicate with campuses and share if there are information sessions that universities are having that are for folks who are interested in becoming principals or getting their cert. We do provide that information to them, but this is not a credentialing process.
That sounds great though. Sounds like it's, geared toward the same end product. And so I think that's great for our teachers to kind of get a little bit of a taste of what that would be like and go through our program. Thank you, Dr. Brown.
You're welcome. And just to add that one of the things we thought was very important to this work is that we have a lot of career teachers who are amazing in the classroom and are amazing at what they do. and they don't aspire to go to central office or to school leadership. They want to stay a teacher. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to build up that teacher leadership pathway, to offer different opportunities for them as a district lead teacher or a model teacher, which you'll hear about. Just because we know we have a core group that are like, hey, I want to grow as a leader, but as long as I'm in the classroom, and we want to be able to provide support for them too.
And we certainly don't want to lose those good teachers. They're invaluable to us.
And I'll just add, and this is a preview, and we shouldn't go here, Tracy or Dr. Brown, because we're going to go into next presentation of the next board meeting. However, because you brought it up, and it's important, I think, to calibrate right now, that teacher leadership, for example, it is something that the teachers help set a standard. So when we talked about a lead teacher and what that lead teacher capacity should be, they crafted that. They set the bar of what it should be. And then in our system, we differentiate that pay via stipend. And so that's all part of that work. And we'll hear more about that next time. But all those things are aligned so that if you're a teacher and you want to be in the classroom, which is exceptional, but you want to lead as a teacher, we want to make sure there's a pathway for you. And we want to differentiate some of that pay as well to make sure that we reinforce that. So I think that's an important point we'll talk about next time, but that development is important in our system.
Thank you very much. Any other trustees with questions and or comments? Ms. Walton.
Thank you, President Mays. Dr. Brown, amazing, amazing work that you and your colleagues are working on so diligently. And thank goodness you have kept the eye on the prize as far as getting it there through times when you could have just put it all on the shelf and said, we've got too much else to do. Kudos to you all for doing that. I have one quick question, and that is, have any of these members, I know it's early, but have any of them entered new leadership roles, or when will we see that happening?
Probably sooner than later. No. At this point, we have, we just started the cadre with the AIM and for our micro badging. So, but we're entering hiring season pretty soon. And so our job is to make sure we're providing onboarding kind of learning and support. So if they are to land one of those roles, they would at least have a jump start into being successful.
Great. Yeah, really helping them have a chance to really not only survive, but thrive. So great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walton.
Hey, Ms. Mays,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hey, real quick, and Dr. Brown and Dr. Cavazos, bravo on this. I know the work that's gone into it, and this is systemic change across the board, and getting, the worst thing you used to see sometimes is that really good principal, people would just automatically push the really good teacher, they'd be automatically pushed into being campus leadership. And just because you're an amazing teacher doesn't mean you're going to be a great principal on that fast. So finding that path to get to there. And I know we've got some of these stipends and some of these, but I think we've got to then take it as a board and start working into total systemic compensation of how these things come in. And as you build, as corporations build these type of things, little things like longevity pay and things, people want to stay because they want to feel contributing, especially in this profession. That's why. But I think building those things in addition to where the long-term compensation comes, is all the things that mesh together. So I think as we develop our new 5-year strategic plan, those things all have to be linked together. As Dr. Grosso says, it's one piece. Everything has to be coming together. So I just encourage my colleagues, these are the long-term strategic compensation discussions we have to have for these leaders, because now we're engaging them, mentally on providing, and now you then have to have that other piece of, while we all do this and this is good, we do pay people. So we have to make sure we're compensating and doing things for the future. So I commend staff for all the work on this.
Thank you, Mr. Hogg.
Thank you, Mr. Hogg. Any other trustees with questions and or comments? Okay, Seeing none, once again, thank you very much, Dr. Brown. Appreciate that presentation. Very excited for part 2. That will also happen later on. Thank you very much. Okay, we will move on our agenda. Next, we have our open forum for non-agenda items. Mrs. Benjamin, do we have any requesters registered to address the board regarding non-agenda items?
No, ma'am, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Then we will continue on with the agenda. Next is our superintendent's report. Dr. Cavazos.
Thank you, President Mays, and no formal report other than the same thank you to our staff and our community for their diligence during this time. I've had the opportunity to visit with a number of teachers and principals and groups and just thank them for their work and their dedication because it is a trying time, but they are doing well and hopefully going to turn this corner with vaccinations and things like that. But a thank you to them, and again, a special thank you to our nurses. I know I mention them often, but just their work is critical. Our custodial staff that cleans those buildings and cleans our facilities over and over and over, ensuring that they're well maintained and cleaned. Thank you to them. And finally, but not I'm not going to be able to mention everybody, but the food services group, as they have worked diligently since March and continue to do that to provide nourishment for our students, which is critically important. I thank them as well. So with that, another thank you. So.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cavazos. Next, any school board reports? Mrs. Fowler.
It's not really a report, but I wanted to give a shout out to Beth Ann Woodard, principal at JB Little, and my friend. Today is her birthday, and I believe she is turning 29 again. So happy birthday, Beth Ann.
Thank you, Mrs. Fowler. I didn't know that we were the same age. Okay, trustees, any other trustees with any reports and or comments? Okay, Mr. Hogg.
Yeah, real fast, Miss May. I'm amazed y'all are all still 29. I'm way past 29. It's amazing how that happens. I just want to thank all my colleagues and everyone in the community knows my wife and I just recovered from COVID. We luckily were blessed with some mild cases over the last week, but it definitely was a very opening and eye-opening and exhausting process to go through. We were blessed, and everyone else, we know not everyone's so lucky to have that. And so I just want to thank all the well wishes from especially my colleagues and staff that know about this, and appreciate it, and glad to be back on the mend, and appreciate all the work from all the staff during this entire pandemic. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hogg, and we are glad that you are back and that you are well, and Leslie as well. Any other trustees? If not, I'm going to take it upon myself just to mention a few things. One, it has been mentioned, but I do want to say on behalf of the full Board of Trustees, happy National Counselors Week. Thank you so much to our more than 150 counselors that we have here in our district for all the many hats that you wear every single day. And we understand that you touch each student that we have directly or indirectly. And for that, we thank you and want to take the opportunity to continue to say thank you very much. Next, had an opportunity to attend National Signing Day this week. And congratulations to all of our athletes that were recognized for their signing to continue their education and their athletic career at the next level. It was very nice to be in our own athletic facility this year. So once again, thank you to the community for their support with the bond funds. Kirk Franklin gave a very inspiring talk. I don't like to say speech. It was as if he was sitting down talking to each athlete individually, just about helping to build themselves up and push themselves to reach their career, make sure that they take care of themselves during their career so that then they can give back at the end of their career. What a great message it was. So once again, congratulations to all of those athletes, to those parents, and to those coaches. Finally, it is Black History Month. So I just want to take the opportunity to just say briefly a few words. One is just to remember that Black History Month is just another opportunity to make sure that we can pay tribute to all the generations of African Americans and the struggle that they have had with adversities and being able to try to achieve equality. Every year I try to focus on something for my three sons, for us to focus on, particularly for that month, and not with just ourselves, but sharing with their friends, sharing with my friends. And this year, for my sons, I'm having us focus on the word history, because history isn't just about what happened centuries or decades ago. Yesterday is history. So I want to make sure that my sons understand, and their friends and whomever else they're talking to, that history doesn't just mean something so long ago. Full reality is today, many African Americans are still struggling with adversity and trying to find opportunities for equal treatment. It may not look the same as maybe it did decades ago, but what people do need to understand is that it does still feel the same, and the impacts of that is the same. So just want to make sure that not only my sons, but that they teach their kids that when we say Black History Month, we're not just talking about decades ago, we're talking about yesterday and the impact that we can continue to make. So I just want to challenge everyone to not get caught up in the cliches, but to try to really understand what the words are and what the meaning is behind those words, and try to help continue to gain some understanding about the reality that we are still fighting inequities in our world today. So in the words of Martin Luther King, he would say, as he did, the time is always right to do what's right. And that is today, that is tomorrow, that is all the days to come. But also for history, one of my favorite quotes that I am sharing with my family this year is from our First Lady, Michelle Obama. And she said to our students of AISD, be focused, be determined, be hopeful, and be empowered. Empower yourselves with a good education. Then get out there, use that education to build a country worthy of your boundless promise. Lead by example, with hope, and never fear. And that's applicable no matter what nationality you are. So once again, I will follow along the lines of Dr. Brown. That's part one of Black History Month for me. And next board meeting, I will continue with part two. So once again, thank you very much to my colleagues. Thank you very much to administration. Thank you for those that have watched. And we hope that everybody has a blessed evening. With that being said, Ms. Secretary, do we have any items to consider?
President Mays, well said. No, we do not have anything to be report from the Secretary.
Thank you very much. Then it is 8:35 p.m. and we are adjourned. Thank you.